I opened my dream bakery and invited my family to the grand opening, but none of them showed up. They all attended Rosie's promotion party instead. As I closed up alone, my dad texted, "We need to talk about the bakery." Can you imagine pouring your entire heart, soul, and life savings into a dream, only to have the people you love most shatter it on opening day? I stood alone in my beautiful, empty bakery, watching my family celebrate my sister on social media, when my phone buzzed with a chilling text from my dad, "We need to discuss the bakery." That's when I knew everything was about to change. Let me take you back a bit. I'm Eileen, and at 32, I finally opened Sweet Gatherings, the bakery I'd dreamed of since I was a little girl. My entire life, I'd yearned for that warmth, that aroma of fresh-baked bread, that feeling of connection. So, when I sent out personalized invitations to my whole family for my grand opening, I truly believed they'd be there. I really did. Instead, I watched my Instagram feed fill with smiling faces at my younger sister Rosie's promotion party, the exact same day as my grand opening. Every single family member chose her. Every single one. As I locked up that night, tears stinging my eyes, Dad's text landed like a punch to the gut. Before I tell you how they tried to crush my dream, let me explain the world I grew up in. We lived in Portland, Oregon, and success wasn't just hoped for, it was demanded. My father, James, was this cutthroat corporate attorney, a titan at one of the Pacific Northwest's most prestigious law firms. He worked these insane 80-hour weeks, missed most of my school stuff, but never, ever let us forget his sacrifices were what put food on our table and kept us important. My mother, Diane, balanced her hospital administrator career with maintaining our elite social status. She ran our home like a hospital ward, every achievement a checkmark in her mental ledger, with bonus points for anything she could humble brag about at a charity gala. My siblings? They were the living embodiment of my parents' definition of success. My older brother, Tyler, now 35, followed Dad into high finance. By 25, he was an investment banker in New York, sending expensive but utterly impersonal gifts, making brief appearances at holidays, always talking deals and market trends I honestly barely understood. Then there was Rosie, 29, the marketing prodigy. She practically flew up the corporate ladder at Tech Fusion, one of those trendy companies with beanbag chairs and cold brew on tap. Mom and Dad practically glowed with pride at every promotion, every salary increase, every single perk Rosie flaunted on her perfectly curated social media. And then there was me, the middle child, the one with flour perpetually under her fingernails. My love affair with baking started at 8 years old, in my Grandma Eliza's kitchen. While my parents pushed Tyler and Rosie into academic competitions and prestigious internships, Grandma Eliza taught me how to feel the perfect consistency of dough between my fingers. When school stressed me out, she'd invite me to her tiny house on the outskirts of town, and we'd spend hours baking. "Baking is love made visible," she'd whisper, her hands gently guiding mine as we shaped cinnamon rolls. "When someone takes a bite, they're tasting your heart." Those words, they lodged deep in my soul and took root. My siblings collected trophies, I collected recipes. I filled a special notebook with every technique Grandma Eliza taught me, adding my own adaptations. My creations always sold out first at school bake sales. My family, though? They saw my passion as cute. "It's a nice hobby, Eileen," Mom would say, that word, hobby, dripping with a specific tone that made it clear it was not a career. But you need to focus on activities that build your college applications. During high school, I started working at Bailey's Bake Shop. Mrs. Bailey, the owner, became my second mentor. Grandma Eliza taught me tradition. Mrs. Bailey taught me business. Profit margins, inventory, customer service. She showed me my dream could be a real career. "You have magic in your hands, Eileen," she'd say. "Never let anyone convince you your talent is just a hobby." When college applications rolled around, my parents pushed pre-med. "You're good at chemistry," Dad reasoned, as if balancing flavors meant I wanted to be a doctor. I compromised, a business major with a food science minor, hoping it would appease them while preparing me for my true goal. During my sophomore year, Grandma Eliza passed away. At the reading of her will, I was stunned. She'd left me her modest savings. To Eileen, the will read, who understands that the most important ingredients in any recipe are passion and love. It wasn't enough to open a bakery immediately, but it was seed money. A vote of confidence from the one person who had always truly believed in my dream. After college, while my siblings launched their impressive careers, I worked 3 jobs. Barista in the mornings, office assistant during the day, baking custom cakes from my tiny apartment kitchen on weekends. My family saw it as my finding myself phase, expecting me to eventually give up. Law school applications are still an option, Dad would casually mention at holidays. My firm is always looking for bright young associates. Mom would add, the hospital has a management training program. I could put in a good word. But my vision for sweet gatherings grew clearer with each passing year. I didn't want just any bakery. I wanted a place that embodied the warmth of Grandma Eliza's kitchen, a gathering spot where people connected over delicious, lovingly made food. For 7 years, I worked, saved, researched. My family still saw it as a phase I'd outgrow. Then I found it, the perfect corner storefront, large windows, exposed brick, original hardwood floors. It was within my budget, thanks to Grandma Eliza and my relentless saving. When I called my family to share the exciting news about signing the lease, their reactions were precisely as expected, yet still disheartening. A retail lease in this economy? Dad's voice carried the same tone he used for risky investments. Send me the paperwork. Better yet, I could invest, help guide it properly. I knew what that meant. His money, his control. Sweet gatherings would become his vision. Mom's response? Honey, the restaurant industry has such a high failure rate. It's not too late for grad school. I saw Dr. Levinson. He said their hospital admin program is still accepting applications. Rosie's backhanded compliment cut deepest. Wow, going full steam ahead with the baking thing. That's so brave of you. I could never risk financial security for a passion project. But that's what makes you special, right? Tyler, ever the hardest to reach, finally got on the phone. Send me your business plan and 5-year projections. Did you account for first-year losses? What's your marketing budget? No congratulations, just skepticism and an assumption of failure. Despite them, I threw myself into preparing the space. Contractors, health permits, business licenses, menu refinement. Every night, I fell into bed exhausted, but fulfilled. One day closer. During this time, I started connecting with neighboring business owners. Annie from Bloom and Grow Flowers next door would stop by with coffee and encouragement. Marcus from Cornerstone Books across the street offered marketing advice. We newcomers need to stick together, Annie said one day, as we sat on paint buckets in my half-renovated space. This neighborhood has real community potential, and businesses like yours will be the heart of it. As opening day approached, I created a special menu inspired by my family. James' Power Breakfast Scone for Dad, Diane's Elegant Earl Grey Cake for Mom, Tyler's Wall Street Walnut Brownies, Rosie's Marketing Maven Macarons. I hoped these would bridge the gap, communicate what I struggled to express. And at the center of my display plan was a special corner dedicated to Grandma Eliza, her framed photo, handwritten recipe cards, and her old wooden rolling pin. 3 weeks before opening, I sent personalized invitations. Thick cream cardstock, gold embossing. I spent too much, but I wanted it to feel important. Each had a personal note, begging them to come. The responses trickled in, all non-committal. We'll try to make it if court adjourns early, Dad texted. Penciling it in, but board meetings that week might run long, Mom replied. Sounds fun. Work is crazy, but we'll see, Rosie said. Tyler just in meetings that week. We'll check calendar. I tried not to let their lukewarm responses dim my excitement. Maybe seeing the finished bakery, tasting the creations named in their honor, would finally make them understand. 1 week before my grand opening, Rosie called. I got the promotion to senior marketing director, she squealed. The company's throwing a huge party next Saturday to celebrate. Everyone will be there. You'll come, right? My heart sank. Her party was scheduled for the exact same day. Before I could even respond, my phone buzzed with messages from my parents. Did you hear about Rosie's amazing news? So proud. Mom texted. Dinner reservation at Morton's after Rosa's promotion party. Family table for 5, Dad's message read. I stared at my phone, the implication crystal clear. They'd automatically included me in her celebration, without even acknowledging the conflict with my grand opening, which they'd known about for weeks. When I gently reminded them, their responses were swift and clarifying. This is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for your sister, Mom replied. You can have a soft opening another day, Dad suggested, as if years of work could simply be rescheduled. I swallowed my disappointment and focused on final preparations. The menu was perfect. The space was beautiful. I ordered extra ingredients, planned contingency. The night before opening, I stood in the completed space, taking it all in. The display cases, the tables, the gleaming coffee machine. Despite my family's lack of enthusiasm, I let hope bloom. Maybe seeing it in all its glory would change everything. I woke at 3:30 a.m. on opening day, too excited to sleep. The kitchen filled with vanilla, cinnamon, fresh bread. Each pastry crafted with precision and love. By 7 a.m., the display cases were perfect. The family-inspired creations sat in prime positions. At 7:30, Annie arrived with fresh flowers. These are on the house, she insisted, hugging me. Today is your day to shine. Marcus appeared shortly after with a handmade sign for his bookshop window, directing customers to my grand opening. I told all my regulars to stop by, he said, handing me a small, wrapped gift. Business warming. Open it later. As 9 a.m. approached, I checked my phone. Nothing. I sent a group text with a photo of the bakery, all set for opening. Hope to see you soon. Still nothing. At 9, I unlocked the doors. Welcomed my first customers. A steady stream of neighbors and curious locals. Overwhelmingly positive feedback. Best cinnamon rolls I've ever had. I'm making this my regular morning stop. Between serving, I kept checking the door, checking my phone. Each chime of the bell, my heart leaped. Each buzz, I grabbed it. Only notifications from service providers. By 11, I'd served dozens, but the faces I most wanted to see remained absent. I sent another text. Great turnout so far. Special treats with your names on them waiting for you. Still no response. At noon, during a brief lull, I checked social media. Immediately wished I hadn't. My feed was flooded with photos from Rosie's party, already in full swing. Dad toasting with champagne in a sleek ballroom. Mom adjusting a "Congratulations Director Rosie" banner. Tyler, who'd apparently flown in for it, arm around Rosie, posing for a professional photographer. But it was Mom's caption that stabbed deepest. So proud of our successful daughter. The whole family gathered to celebrate this incredible achievement. The whole family. Except me. I put my phone away, plastered on a smile as the afternoon crowd arrived. The initial rush slowed. Each hour that passed with empty tables felt like a personal failure, despite the genuine enthusiasm of those who did visit. Lucy Chen, a local reporter, arrived around 2. She noticed my frequent glances at the door, my increasingly hollow smiles. Family couldn't make it, she asked gently. I considered lying, but opted for the simple truth. They had another commitment. Her eyes softened with understanding. She shifted her interview, focusing on my passion, my vision for sweet gatherings as a community space. Her kindness nearly broke my composure. I held it together until she left, promising a feature. By 5 p.m., the truth was unavoidable. Not a single family member. Not a call, not a text during business hours. The special pastries I'd created in their honor remained largely unsold. Their handwritten name cards, a painful reminder of my naive hope. As closing time approached, I began cleanup, moving mechanically. Social media posts from Rosie's celebration continued to appear, each one a fresh wound. At 6:45 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. Dad, we need to discuss the bakery. No congratulations. No apology for their absence. Just a businesslike statement implying problems needed solving. As I locked the front door, the emotions I'd suppressed all day finally broke through. Alone in my beautiful bakery, surrounded by the physical manifestation of my dream and the stark evidence of my family's indifference, I sank to the floor and sobbed. I don't know how long I sat there. A gentle knock on the glass startled me. Annie and Marcus stood outside, concerned faces peering in. I wiped my tears, let them in. "We thought you might need friends tonight," Annie said, holding up a bottle of champagne. "First day of business calls for a proper celebration, whether it was perfect or not," Marcus added, pulling 3 glasses from a tote bag. As we sat at one of the tables, toasting my bakery despite the day's disappointments, a realization hit me. The family I was born into might never understand my dream. But perhaps I was finding a new kind of family right here, in this neighborhood, with people who showed up when it mattered. The next morning, I arrived early, determined to move forward. I was elbow-deep in dough when the bells above the door jingled. I'd forgotten to lock it. "Sorry, we're not open yet," I called out, not looking up. "That's apparent from the empty tables," my father's crisp voice replied. My head snapped up. There they were. My entire family. Dad led the way, leather portfolio tucked under his arm. Mom followed, her critical gaze sweeping the space. Rosie, designer handbag swinging, sunglasses perched on her head, a tablet in her hand displaying Tyler's face. He was video calling in from New York. "What are you doing here?" I asked, wiping flour from my hands. "Family meeting," Dad announced, selecting the largest table and gesturing for them to sit. "We need to discuss the bakery situation." "I'm preparing for customers," I said, glancing at the clock. "We open in 30 minutes. Based on what we observed yesterday, I doubt you'll be overwhelmed with business," Mom said, her tone sympathetic, her words cutting. I flinched. "You observed? None of you were here yesterday." "Social media exists for a reason," Rosie quipped, tapping her phone. The geotags and check-ins for this place were hardly breaking the internet. Tyler's tiny voice piped up from the tablet. I reviewed the neighborhood demographics and foot traffic patterns. "This location has problematic fundamentals for a specialty food business." They had been monitoring my opening day from afar while celebrating Rosie. The realization added fresh pain to yesterday's wounds. Dad opened his portfolio, removing a stack of papers. "We've been discussing your situation. We believe we have a solution that will minimize damage." "My situation?" I echoed, anger beginning to simmer. "Honey," Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping to that gentle, bad news tone she used for hospital patients. "We all understand the appeal of following a dream, but sometimes dreams need to be adjusted to align with reality. We can help you sell this place before you lose everything," Dad continued, sliding documents across the table. "I've contacted a commercial real estate agent. He believes with minimal losses, we can get you out of this lease." I stared at the papers. Pre-filled listing agreements. Ready for my signature. They had prepared these before even seeing my bakery operate for a full day. Mom pulled out more papers. I took the liberty of completing medical school applications for 3 programs that accept late admissions. Your undergraduate grades were strong enough that, with the right personal statement, you could begin classes this fall. Tyler's face looked almost bored. "I've run the numbers, Eileen. Based on industry averages and your location, you're looking at insolvency within 4 months. 6 if you drastically cut expenses, which would further compromise quality and accelerate the failure cycle." Rosie, who'd been taking photos of my bakery, finally joined in. "Look, it's not all bad news. I convinced my boss to open an entry-level position in our marketing department. The pay isn't great, but with your background, you could move up quickly. I'm not supposed to show favoritism, but..." She shrugged, making it clear this was a major concession, offered out of pity. They continued, talking over each other, outlining my failure, offering their solutions. My dream reduced to a problem requiring their intervention. My years of work dismissed as a misguided phase. Their absence yesterday reframed as rational detachment, rather than hurtful abandonment. As they spoke, the bells above the door jingled again. Mrs. Bailey walked in, carrying a small gift basket. She stopped short, seeing my family. "Eileen, dear. I came to congratulate you on your opening." "Is this your family?" she asked, approaching with a warm smile. Dad glanced up with that dismissive expression he reserved for service personnel. "We're in the middle of a private discussion. Perhaps you could return during business hours." Mrs. Bailey's smile didn't waver. I'm Adelaide Bailey, owner of Bailey's Bake Shop. Well, Bailey's Bake Shop's now, since we've expanded to 5 locations. She extended her hand, which Dad suddenly seemed very interested in shaking. I've known Eileen since she was 16 and recognized her exceptional talent immediately. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Success was a language my family understood. Mrs. Bailey spoke it fluently. Mom straightened. Rosie lowered her phone. Even Tyler's expression sharpened. 5 locations? Dad repeated. That's quite an accomplishment. Indeed, Mrs. Bailey responded, placing the gift basket on the counter. Which is why I have complete faith in Eileen's success. Her creativity and business acumen remind me of myself at her age. Though I dare say her technical skills surpass what mine were then. She turned to me, genuine pride in her eyes. I wanted to bring this welcome basket and let you know how sorry I am to have missed your opening. My flight from the baking conference in Chicago was delayed. The contrast between Mrs. Bailey's sincere regret for missing one day and my family's complete absence despite weeks of notice hung in the air like the scent of burnt sugar. You know, Mrs. Bailey continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension, Eliza spoke of her granddaughter's talent constantly at our community baking club. She always said you would surpass all expectations, Eileen. She believed your understanding of how food brings people together was your true gift. A memory surfaced, sharp and painful, Grandma Eliza trying to convince my parents to attend my high school culinary showcase. Their polite refusals. Her disappointed, but unsurprised, expression. She had always known they would never understand my passion. Something inside me broke, and then, reformed in that moment, stronger and more defined. Why did none of you come yesterday? I asked, interrupting whatever financial point Tyler was making. An uncomfortable silence fell. My family exchanged glances. We told you, Rosa's promotion party, Mom finally said. It was a conflict we couldn't avoid, Dad added. The company CEO was there, Rosie pointed out. It was a career-defining moment. I shook my head. The party started at noon. My opening began at 9. You could have come for even 30 minutes. One of you. Any of you. More uncomfortable silence. Just tell me the truth, I pressed. For once, be honest about why my bakery, my dream, was not worth even a brief appearance. It was Tyler who finally spoke, his digital presence perhaps making honesty easier. The family discussed it and decided that attending Rosie's event sent the right message about what achievements the family values. The words hit me like a physical blow. You discussed it? All of you? You made a collective decision not to support me. Mom flushed, but lifted her chin defensively. Real achievements deserve real celebrations, Eileen. Your sister has worked incredibly hard to earn her position. And I haven't? I gestured around my bakery, my voice rising. I've worked 3 jobs for 7 years to save for this place. I've tested hundreds of recipes, built a business plan, secured a lease, navigated permits and health codes, and created something from nothing. How is that not an achievement? It's a nice effort, Dad said in his patronizing tone, but let's be realistic about the difference between opening a small bakery and becoming the youngest director in a Fortune 500 company. We're trying to help you, Mom added, before this situation becomes any more financially damaging. Dad tapped the listing agreements. You have 2 choices, Eileen. You can sign these papers and begin the process of extracting yourself from this mistake with our help, or you can continue on this path without our support, financial or otherwise. The ultimatum hung in the air. I looked at each of their faces, seeing not malice, but a genuine belief they were acting in my best interest. They truly could not see the value in what I had built, because it didn't align with their definition of success. Mrs. Bailey placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. The first customers of the day were peering through the front windows. I think you all need to leave now, I said quietly. I have a business to run. Eileen, Dad began, his voice hardening. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. For my entire life, you have treated my passion as a phase to outgrow, a hobby to indulge, or a mistake to correct. Not one of you showed up yesterday for the most important day of my professional life. Now you arrive with plans to dismantle my dream before it has even had a chance to succeed. I don't want your help. Not like this. I walked to the door and held it open. Please leave. Customers are waiting. They gathered their papers slowly, expressions ranging from shocked to hurt to angry. As they filed past me, Dad paused. This conversation is not over, he said quietly. When you're ready to be reasonable, call us. The bells jingled as they departed, and I welcomed my first customers with a professional smile that hid the storm raging within. The week following my family's impromptu intervention was the darkest since I'd opened. Despite my brave stand, their words had planted seeds of doubt that grew with each slow business day. My initial creative energy dimmed. I found myself just going through the motions, without the passion that had fueled every batch of dough. Sales declined. Customers could sense the difference. Annie noticed it immediately. She started stopping by daily, sometimes bringing lunch, other times just sitting with me. Marcus started bringing afternoon coffee, staying to help with cleanup. Their quiet support kept me functioning when giving up seemed easiest. My family, meanwhile, continued their campaign of concerned pressure. Dad sent daily messages about the real estate agent being ready when you are. Mom forwarded medical school orientations, just keeping options open for you, dear. Rosie's social media featured not-so-subtle posts about knowing when to pivot and failing forward. Tyler sent spreadsheets, predicting my business decline with clinical precision. The most painful development? I discovered through a casual comment from a distant cousin who came to the bakery that my family had actively discouraged extended relatives from supporting my business. We were told you were figuring things out and preferred space to work through the process, she explained awkwardly. Otherwise, we all would have come to your opening. Each night, I returned home physically exhausted, emotionally drained. The bakery wasn't failing outright, but it was struggling. Foot traffic wasn't converting to regular customers as projected. The special touches that made sweet gatherings unique required time and energy I was finding harder to summon. 2 weeks after opening, while cleaning out a storage cabinet, I found a dusty box I'd forgotten. Inside was Grandma Eliza's recipe journal. As I flipped through the familiar pages, a sealed envelope fell out, my name in her shaky script. I stared, realizing she must have placed it there before her death, perhaps anticipating I'd find it when I finally opened my bakery. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. My dearest Eileen, it began. If you are reading this, you have found the courage to pursue your dream despite all obstacles. I always knew you would. From the first time your little hands pressed into dough beside mine, I saw in you a special gift, not just for baking, but for understanding how food brings joy and connection to others. Tears blurred my vision as I continued. Your parents and siblings may never understand your passion the way I do. They measure success by society's standards, while you measure it by the happiness you create. Neither is wrong, simply different. But never doubt that your path is valid and valuable. The world needs artists and nurturers as much as it needs executives and professionals. The letter recounted memories, observations of my growth. Remember, sweet girl, that success is not measured by others' recognition, but by the fulfillment you find in your work and the lives you touch with your gifts. My greatest joy has been watching you discover your passion. My greatest hope is that you will nurture it, even when others cannot see its worth. It ended with a postscript that broke the dam of my emotions. The true secret ingredient in any recipe is love. Your bakery will succeed because no one understands this better than you. I sat on the storage room floor, clutching her letter, sobbing until no more tears would come. Then, for the first time in weeks, something shifted inside me. Grandma Eliza had always believed in me, not despite my different path, but because of it. Her validation had never been contingent on me conforming to traditional success metrics. She had loved me for exactly who I was. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt since before the opening. I arrived at the bakery early and began creating new recipes. Not the family tribute items that had gone unsold, but creations that reflected my true sensibilities. A lemon lavender shortbread, a dark chocolate cherry sourdough, a seasonal fruit galette. Annie noticed the change immediately. "The light is back in your eyes," she observed. "What happened?" I showed her Grandma Eliza's letter. "I've been trying to prove my worth to people who measure by a different scale," I explained. It's time I stopped seeking their validation. You know, Annie said thoughtfully, we newcomers to this neighborhood are all struggling with the slow build of customer awareness. What if we created an event together? Something to showcase all our businesses and build community connection. Marcus arrived with his coffee, overheard, and immediately built upon it. A community gathering. Exactly what your bakery is named for. We could have readings from local authors at my shop, flower arranging mini classes from Annie, and featured pastries from you. The idea took root. For the first time since my disastrous opening day, excitement bubbled up again. Not the desperate hope for family approval, but something more sustainable, a vision based on community connection, not family validation. Lucy Chin, the reporter, called that week to follow up. When I mentioned our plans, she immediately offered to write a feature piece. This is exactly the kind of local business cooperation the Chronicle likes to highlight, she explained. A collaborative event could draw attention from throughout the city. That evening, I made the most difficult decision since opening the bakery. I created a new signature item, Eliza's Legacy, a cinnamon roll with apple filling and brown butter glaze, combining elements from both of my grandmother's beloved recipes. I placed it prominently in my display case, with a small card explaining its significance. What I didn't do was create any new items bearing my immediate family's names or send them invitations to the community event. The announcement would go out on social media and local channels. Whether they attended would be their choice, based on genuine interest, not guilt or manipulation. As I locked up that night, my phone buzzed. Dad, the commercial property market is heating up. We should list soon before values decline further. Call me. For the first time, I didn't feel a stab of pain or doubt. Instead, I felt calm certainty. I was choosing my own path. Whether sweet gatherings succeeded or failed, it would do so on my terms, as a reflection of my vision. The 3 weeks following Grandma Eliza's letter were filled with purposeful activity. Our simple cross-promotion grew into a neighborhood-wide celebration. The vintage clothing boutique offered a fashion show. The craft brewery created a special pale ale to complement my pastries. Even the yoga studio agreed to hold free mini-sessions. My social media strategy shifted from perfectly staged food photos to behind-the-scenes glimpses, stories of recipe development, connections between regulars. The response was immediate. Engagement increased as people connected with the genuine journey. Lucy Chen's article appeared, highlighting the collaborative spirit. Sweet Gatherings bakery owner Eileen Marshall exemplifies the community-focused entrepreneurship revitalizing the district, she wrote. Her approach treats food not just as a product, but as a medium for human connection. The article was shared widely. My followers grew. For the first time, my bakery gained genuine momentum, driven by authentic interest. I still didn't send my family invitations, but I posted public announcements. The morning of the event arrived with perfect autumn weather. I'd been baking since midnight. Annie arrived at dawn with elaborate flower arrangements. Marcus set up a book exchange. By 9 a.m., an hour before opening, a line had already formed outside Sweet Gatherings. This is really happening, I whispered to Annie, peeking out the window. This is what happens when you build something authentic, she replied, squeezing my hand. When we opened the doors, people flowed in. The display cases emptied faster than I could restock. Eliza's Legacy sold out in the first hour. Every table was filled, customers sharing space with strangers who quickly became conversation partners. The community I had envisioned was manifesting before my eyes. Mid-morning, a familiar figure appeared at the counter. Mrs. Bailey, beaming with pride, accompanied by 3 other women. Eileen, these are some of my former employees who have gone on to open their own successful bakeries, she introduced them. We've formed something of a mentorship network, and we'd love to have you join us. As I thanked her, overwhelmed, I noticed my phone buzzing. Photos from the gathering were being shared widely by food influencers who had made the trip. The hashtag Sweet Gatherings was trending locally. By noon, I knew I had underestimated turnout. Pastry supplies were running dangerously low. I was considering an early closure when Lucy Chin arrived with Mark, the owner of Riverfront Restaurant, one of the most popular farm-to-table establishments in the city. Mark has an interesting proposition for you, Lucy said. He'd been sampling my pastries. Your flavor profiles and commitment to quality ingredients align perfectly with our ethos, he said. We'd start with a small weekly order, but if it works well, we could expand significantly. As I discussed logistics with Mark, I spotted a woman photographing my menu with a professional camera. She introduced herself as a representative from the Small Business Development Grant Committee. We focus on innovative local businesses that contribute to neighborhood revitalization, she explained, handing me her card. Your collaborative approach with neighboring businesses is exactly the kind of economic development model we seek to support. I'd love to send you grant application materials. The day continued to exceed all expectations. By closing time, Sweet Gatherings had served more customers in one day than in the entire previous week. Every pastry had sold. Business connections had formed. And most importantly, the bakery had established itself as a genuine community hub. As I tallied receipts that evening, my phone buzzed. Dad, a formal message. Saw the coverage of your event today. Congratulations on the turnout. Available to discuss business growth strategies if interested. No warmth, no admission of his previous dismissiveness, but an acknowledgement of observable success. It was followed by messages from the rest of the family in quick succession. Mom, your bakery looked lovely in the photos online. The flower arrangements were exquisite. You always did have an eye for aesthetics. Rosie, that social media strategy is generating serious engagement. Clever approach targeting the community angle. My team was discussing it today. Tyler, wholesale accounts provide stable revenue streams. The restaurant connection is worth pursuing. Consent comparative analysis if helpful. Their messages reflected their unchanged perspectives, each viewing my success through their particular professional lens, rather than understanding what truly mattered to me. Yet, there was a new tone of respect, however grudging, in their communications. I responded politely but briefly to each, neither seeking their approval nor rejecting their tentative overtures. My focus remained on building what I had started, rather than vindicating myself in their eyes. In the following weeks, Sweet Gatherings experienced steady growth. The Riverfront Restaurant Partnership provided a reliable wholesale income stream. The grant application advanced. Most importantly, regular customers began to form, people whose names and preferences I came to know, whose lives intersected with mine through the simple medium of food shared in a welcoming space. A month after the community gathering, Sweet Gatherings recorded its first consistently profitable week. I hired my first employee, Jessica, a culinary school graduate who shared my philosophy. With help, I could focus more on creative development and community building. My family maintained a cautious distance, occasionally sending messages that revealed they were monitoring my progress, still seemingly surprised by my continued success. I responded with polite updates, but no longer felt the desperate need for their understanding that had once consumed me. In this new chapter, I found a quiet confidence growing. Sweet Gatherings was becoming exactly what I envisioned. Not because I had finally won my family's approval, but because I had stopped measuring success by their standards and started living according to my own. 6 months after the community gathering, Sweet Gatherings had evolved beyond my initial vision in the most wonderful ways. It was a neighborhood institution. The grant funded an expanded kitchen and outdoor seating. My most meaningful innovation was Chosen Family Sundays, a monthly event where customers reserved the bakery for a shared community meal. I provided the space, bread, and desserts. Attendees brought dishes to share. Annie, Marcus, and other business owners became my closest friends and advisors. Mrs. Bailey's mentorship network provided invaluable professional development. My relationship with my family entered a new phase, characterized by careful rebuilding on my terms. The first significant shift occurred when my father attended a special event at the bakery, alone, without attempting unsolicited business advice. He observed, purchased items, and left with a simple, "You've built something functional here." From my father, this constituted high praise. My mother began stopping by occasionally with friends, a social acknowledgement that meant more than her words. "I told my hospital board about your bakery," she mentioned, a hint of genuine pride in her voice for the first time. Several of them have become regular customers. Rosie's approach was professional respect before personal connection. Your social media presence has serious engagement metrics, she noted during a rare Sunday visit. My team actually referenced your community building strategy in a recent presentation. Later, more quietly, she added, I think I've been comparing our accomplishments since we were kids. Maybe we could just be sisters instead of competitors. Tyler made the most dramatic gesture, flying in from New York. He arrived with spreadsheets, but also uncharacteristic humility. Your financial trajectory has defied standard industry projections, he admitted. I was working from models that didn't account for the community investment factor you prioritized. There are some lessons here for traditional business approaches. I welcomed these overtures with cautious optimism. The wounds from their absence and intervention had healed, but left scars. I established boundaries. Respectful engagement was welcome. Controlling behavior was not. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, I told my father during an honest conversation, but that requires acceptance of who I actually am, not who you wish I would become. The most profound healing in my life, however, had nothing to do with family reconciliation. It came from the realization that my worth was not determined by their validation. The journey from seeking their approval to finding my own measure of success had transformed me in ways that extended far beyond business ownership. As Sweet Gatherings thrived, I expanded the space to include Eliza's Corner, a special area featuring my grandmother's photo, recipe books, and a small library of baking resources. This became the heart of our community outreach programs. A year after opening, Sweet Gatherings was featured in a national publication. Marshall has created more than a successful business, the article concluded. She has established a template for how commercial spaces can foster genuine community in an age of digital isolation. On the first anniversary of Sweet Gatherings, we hosted a celebration that filled the bakery and spilled out onto the sidewalk. My family attended, not as central figures, but as guests among many, taking their place in the wider community that had embraced my vision. As I looked around at the gathering that evening, I realized how perfectly the reality had come to match the name I had chosen. Sweet Gatherings had indeed become a place where sweetness, both literal and metaphorical, brought people together. The journey hadn't followed the path I initially imagined, but it had led to a destination more meaningful than I could have planned. The most valuable lesson I learned was not about business strategy or even baking. It was about the nature of validation and the source of true confidence. My family's inability to recognize the value in my dream had initially seemed like the greatest obstacle. In reality, it became the catalyst for my most significant growth. Sometimes our dreams succeed not despite family disappointment, but because it forces us to find our true strength. When external validation disappears, we must learn to trust our own vision and values. That painful process of separation and self-trust ultimately leads to more authentic achievement than success that comes through conforming to others' expectations. I'd love to know if any of you have experienced something similar in your own lives. Have you ever had to choose between following your passion and meeting others' expectations? Did you find your own version of chosen family along the way? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.